Share the right screen. Stop share. There you go. That should work now. So what we're going to dive into in a topic that, Aaron and I kind of discussed this and, we will have some discussion about topics. I know I have some other topics based upon what you guys filled out, which I appreciate. We'll continue to move down that list as well. And then if there's other topics that you guys would like to navigate or address or be added to, just let me know. Never hesitate to reach out. You guys could have access. I'm inside the Trainer Eyes app, so you can hit me up as well, and or just ask Aaron. But what we're going to cover today is consistency and why it's so important to stack those days, how to navigate through the weekends and other situations, and what does that look like if you are having that loop or yo-yo, effect, feeling like you're starting over after specific events and or weekends, things of that nature that may cause you to get off track. So, and I'm gonna have to move my phone. Sorry, we have a bunch of DMs coming in. You'll hear those buzzes going off the whole time. So, why staying in calorie range is going to matter so much. I had this conversation the other day in a coaching call with one of my guys. You know, Life can get messy. We can be disrupted with scheduling. Things do happen. And I'm always going to talk about this because specifically with nutrition, even workouts, you can get away with this for the most part. Uh, Obviously you don't want to go too long, multiple weeks, but even with workouts, as long as you get some type of stimulus to the muscle, you're able to maintain if you don't have the right setup and or time and or ability to push yourself to a certain level. But consistency is always going to beat perfection because again, we have to get close enough. And your body's going to respond, and your body is really likes consistency in general. Again, we're creatures of habit, and when we're in a good routine and habit, our bodies will thrive, and we can thrive in those situations. Now, obviously, things do happen that can throw us off, and or our routine gets disrupted. It's really how we navigate those situations is going to be important, and see if we can build some guardrails to help support you guys through that. Um, so your body's going to respond to trends, not just one single day. Nutrition success is built through a repetitive pattern and behavior, and it's reinforcing that behavior and that it's who you need to become, and how you view nutrition is going to help impact long-term success. So the real long-term success in nutrition and nutrition game is what you do most often, not what you do occasionally. So again, I talk about this a lot. We want to frame it like just like brushing your teeth. You want to make sure you brush your teeth every day. So some of these concepts you're going to stack inside your habits that you consistently do on a daily basis. Because if you start mastering some of these close enough and they become what you do on a daily basis, it makes it a lot easier for you long term because it's easier to stack the days as well. So, 5 perfect days cannot undo 2 uncontrolled days. Now, hear me out on this. This is where we've seen from a coaching standpoint. I coach and I have coached thousands and thousands of women over the years. So I, and I've gotten women really awesome results. I help and have helped, with Aaron's success as well. So. I've seen this on both men and women. When It's not gender specific. If somebody has a bad day, and I've seen this on both sides, they they just throw up their hands and say, "Oh well," and continue that bad. I just should say bad. I would say more unhealthy and or habits and responses that are not serving you in the way you want them to serve you. You want to, because it's a lot of times it's emotional response or just throwing hands up, whatever. If they have one thing that's off and or not perfect or a bad meal, then they're like, whatever, I'll just continue down that path. Well, that's kind of a self-sabotaging or you know, very a disruptive mindset. Because how's it really serving you to continue to do the things that are not serving you? That's what you got to really work through in those situations. But it's happened with both men and women. I'm coaching, one of my clients right now. We work through that in cycles, and the mindset shifts is, if they have a bad meal and or it's not what they intended to have, and they're off, you know, on their numbers or tracking or just in general, and their mind goes, oh, whatever, I'm just going to eat, what I feel like. So this can happen across the board, and it's understanding and being aware of those situations because you do have 100% control and you have a choice. So it's kind of stepping back and identifying if you do cycle like this, what's the purpose? What's the first thing that comes to mind? And is it truly what you desire your outcome to be? Because we got to do some a little bit more, mindset work or shifts in situations if you cycle like this. So your weekly average determines your outcome, and we want to stay within the guardrails. Again, I said that. So, the calories are the steering wheel. They're going to determine direction. Now, obviously, we give you more specific macros because macros will help with controlling how many calories you consume and recovery energy. I know I talked about that, one of the last calls is just really diving into macros. So the calories is going to be one of the main factors because, yeah, you can lose and drop body fat even if your macros are not perfect, but if your calorie range is where it needs to be, you can. Um, what we try to do is make it easier and faster and maintain the lean tissue by manipulating your macros. So consistency and range equals progress because 99.9% of the time, even if we track, and I know there's discrepancy with tracking, there's discrepancy with the AI in some format. The only truly way that you're going to get 100% accuracy with your nutrition is if you scaled everything and data entered that way and portioned it out. Every other way is going to be averages or close enough. So that's why we're going to teach, consistency over range equals, stall or gain, right? So we want to make sure that we keep you close enough. Uh, and what we want to refrain from or avoid is really burnout and the rebound cycle where you feel like it's so restricting that you hit a breaking point, whether you become too hungry, too frustrated, that you cycle back and overconsume or hit a burnout, a marker point. It doesn't have to be that way. Again, we have to be close enough and good enough, and it doesn't have to be perfect. So a lot of times, what happens with coaching clients and communicating nutrition patterns is, yes, a lot of us overeat. We just overconsume because it's really easy to do. It is. I've done it myself. It's one of those things. How calorie dense foods can be, right? So when we start coaching clients and we have to reframe and retrain their body to respond to specific calorie needs and or responses like hunger responses. So that way we can keep them within the ranges they need to be healthy and see the needle move. And it doesn't have to be really quick either. It can take time, but you have to have patience because ideally this becomes who you are and you do it on a consistent basis. So why the weekend matters. This is where we see a lot of the cycling appear in trends with some clients. They may appear in other situations with other clients. So what happens with weekends? Remove structure. We just went through this with the holidays, right? Different wake up times, social meals, restaurants, alcohol snacking increases. So weekends shouldn't be the exception. It should be part of the plan. And how can we maneuver them and still have a win-win situation? because we can. Many times it doesn't have to be this or that. It can be both. You can go through your weekend, have a good time, have social, and navigate all these situations and still come out on the other side without overconsumption. Because many times what we do is we put that thought up that it has to be this or that, and that's really a program running, and we're told that so many times when ideally you want to have most situations be a win-win. So the math that some people ignore or many people ignore, if you feel like you're always starting over or cycling, weekday deficits of 400 calories times equals 5 days equals, minus 2,000. Okay. Weekend surplus of 800 calories times 2 days equals plus 1,600. So, and it can be even more extreme than that. You can have 2 days of more than surplus in a weekend, and your net weekly progress is minimal or none, and or your break even and or over just in on a 2 day overconsumption. That's why we want to talk about, and it can cancel out all the effort you've put in those 5 days. That's why here in a little bit I'm going to talk about stacking days. I talk about this with my clients, my male clients a lot, because as you stack days, you're going to build momentum. You're going to see the needle move. You're going to get more motivation. You're going to see some other changes, which I'll talk about. So if you feel like you're yo-yoing, this is typically why somebody is yo-yoing. They'll see the needle move, they'll have an incident and or off schedule, overconsumption, almost start back over to break even. Now, I'm going to talk off script here a little bit. Now, we had a weekend out of town, and out of our food routines and our general routines, it was with some friends, and the places to eat were minimal, not our typical situations that we navigate and understand how the food is prepared and cooked. Of course, in those situations, many times you do the best you can with making decisions based upon what's available. That's what we did. We came back, the scale was up a little bit, not a ton, because many times when you consume foods outside the foods that you're normally consuming, they may have other substances in them. What I'm saying there is they may have more salt, they may have more sugar, more calorie dense. And many times when we see, foods that have those additive components in them, you're going to hold on to a little bit of water weight. And many times it's not true scale weight. You'll get on the scale, scales up, give it a day or two, your body will utilize and process and get rid of some of the excess fluids that you may be holding on to based upon how the foods were prepared. Happens all the time with me if I'm off my schedule or we eat out at certain restaurants. It happens. So just be aware of that and make sure you have a knowledge base around that. What I'm saying is in situations, understanding that if the scale's up a little bit doesn't mean it's true weight. And many times it's water weight. So pay attention to that process. So again, eating out, you can make it a win-win. You can still navigate restaurants, situations, and still enjoy yourself. But you do have to have control and some discipline to the process, because then it makes it a lot easier. Again, you anchor the meal in protein. Another simple thing you can do is control portion. That's a easy thing to do for you, and it's a simple way to make sure you don't overconsume in calories. Decide before you arrive. If you know you're going to certain restaurants, just hop on the internet, or you probably could pull this off ChatGPT to be really transparent. If you know the restaurant's name, location, you could probably ask ChatGPT what's the three best low calorie, high protein meals they have on. And I haven't tried this, but maybe I should. But I almost guarantee it will pull that information, because if it's on the web, and most of this information is on the web, you can already have a decision of what you're gonna consume before you even get to the restaurant, and still feel satisfied and good about the process. So minimize liquid calories when possible. Obviously, it can add up fairly quickly. And or if you know you're going to have some alcohol consumption, make sure your calories are within those ranges, and you can still do that and stay on track. I mean, consistency is a skill in it. And is there a discipline process? Yeah, there is. I mean, you and we're all disciplined in some format, and it's our choice to be disciplined in areas that we want to be disciplined. So, and it's it's trained, it's reinforced. So with that, we want to have awareness. You know, where are we going? What's the environment like? The planning, the repetition, the adjustment. Because if you make these slight uh, if you take these concepts and implement them in your weekends, and you come out on the other side winning that weekend, you come back into Monday and you have a ton of momentum, you're feeling pretty good about yourself, right? So every weekend is a practice and opportunity to see if we can navigate it. When I say weekends, and some people may not be weekends, they may be worked the weekends during the week, or it's when you're off your regular schedule. I probably should have framed it that way. Here's here's a good thing to look at, and I talk about this a lot with my guys, is stacking. If we can start stacking 14 days, the needle's going to move. You're going to start seeing and feeling the impact of the results. So your body does need time to adjust to this new you, right? And here's some things that will happen when you stay consistent past that 5 day, 7 day cycle. Your hormones will start to adapt. Your appetite will start to regulate. Okay. You're not going to have to consume as much food because your appetite has stabilized, and it may lower some, which is a good thing. That way you don't feel like you always have to overconsume. Your weight trends become clear. Obviously, you're doing the weigh-ins and have the scales, and then the habits start to feel automatic. When you start stacking those past that 14-day cycle, you're going to start feeling really good about the process and everything else, from not only from the physical, um, but your mental component as well. So if you can push it up to 28 days, you're going to be humming, and you're going to feel really, really good about where you're going. So it's a matter of how many days can we put together where we're close enough, not perfect, close enough, and win in the weekends, and you win another weekend, and that becomes what you do. And pretty soon you win 3 weekends, and you're 21 day, 28 day in, and you're really feeling good about the process. So why short burst fail? And you see this with other crash diets, cleanses, things of that nature. Yeah, can they get the needle moving? But that's not a true long-term solution for you guys. So or anybody really. So 5 good days feels productive. They're not enough. Again, we got to stack. It's too short for fat loss signals, too short for habit information. Momentum requires continuity continuously, right? And your body will make adjustments. When you start getting your consumption down where it needs to be for weight loss, yeah, you're going to have some hunger responses. When you control that with protein and some other techniques that we've given you, your stomach will shrink. So your consumption will get smaller and smaller, and your sensation of being fuller will get quicker. So that's 14, 21 days in. You should notice that. And then your habits and adaptation for portion sizes and over consuming should make some adjustments. Your body will regulate itself from that standpoint. So I talked about this a lot, the yo-yo effect, and this is again, this is a real thing, and we've coached many clients through this. Great Monday through Friday, fall off Saturday, Sunday, restart Monday. That's that can be hard on individuals from a mental standpoint. So that's why we have to have some changes in how we navigate the weekends, so that way we can stack and get momentum and build that confidence, because you can do it. You can see the results, and the results will come, but it's a matter of stacking the days. And what happens is it creates frustrations, scales up and down all over the place, loss of confidence. Then the thought process goes, oh, is there something wrong with me? Typically not, but we can cause metabolic dysfunction if we do a lot of these things where we're up and down and up and down. We're trying to give you guys the true science, not sexy, because it doesn't have to be, but implemented properly is going to be a long-term solution for you. Why is it so draining? Monday feels like starting over, no compounding progress, which is so important. No momentum. Again, adjustments in your response to food, your hunger, your portion, your confidence. All that's going to be impacted. I know you guys have heard me say this. Progress can be boring, but it feels good when you're hitting it. When the needle continues to move. So real progress looks boring. It may be similar meals. Yes, do you want to have some variety within that? Yeah, but typically you're going to cycle similar, calories, obviously got to be close enough. Decision making. I just went through several tips and tricks that, and I wouldn't really say tricks, they're just strategies that's going to get you through the weekend better or closer. Again, it has to be repeated. Boring does work. So again, anchor protein at every meal, look it up, pre-decide of, hey, if I'm going to this restaurant, here's what I'm going to consume. And I do that many times. If we're going to a specific restaurant, I already know kind of if it's a restaurant we repeat, repeatedly go to here locally. There's one or two items that I will always consume. When we were down in West Baden, we watched the IU game on Friday, and it was like a sports bar. So typically, sports bar has one of everything, which it did, and luckily they're in southern Indiana, and there's a really good farm down there called Fisher Farm. I think it's southern Indiana. I think that's where it's at. But they had Fisher Farm products, which Fisher Farm products is a local, beef, pork, and free ranged. So they actually had that on the menu. So what I did was I ordered their patties, pulled the bun off, ordered a side salad, and I was good. And it was a good quality protein source. We did order some appetizers, which is a combination of things because there was multiple people there. But I navigated the situation, based upon identifying what I thought was the best product for me, and it worked out well, and I felt good about it. So again, you can choose one indulgent, but don't overindulge. Eat slower. That always is going to help. Eat slower, drink some water as you're consuming. Stop when you're satisfied or right before, and it's okay to shut it down. Just give yourself some time, and those hunger responses will subside. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer for people. So, and then keep mealtime predictable because that's important. That way you don't get those big swings where you're too hungry. Again, on the weekends and then other situations, social situations, alcohol awareness. Alcohol adds calories fast, lowers food control, disrupts sleep and recovery. If you drink, set a limit, budget your calories ahead. And so that way you stay within your parameters or close enough. Again, one meal off does not ruin the whole day, the whole week. What typically does is multiple actions after that meal, right? Or self-sabotage. So patterns do and patterns will and can disrupt. So try to so if you have one off meal and or if you're not inside the guardrails of what you thought you should be or close enough, just get close enough and feel okay with it. Try not to self-sabotage and or have if the guilt thoughts start coming in, you really need to process why. What's the purpose of me having guilt thoughts because I overconsumed? So you need to do some internal work there, and that's really the mindset stuff because there may be some things there that you need to unpack. What emotional response do you have to that? Again, ranges over rules. Um, Rigid is going to typically break under pressure. If you're inside the range or close enough, you have a little bit more flexibility. Calorie ranges, uh, calorie ranges instead of one number. So protein is going to be a foundation. That's minimums. Flexible structure keeps you consistent. So I gave you some structure earlier here. If you stay within those parameters, again, it's going to get you close enough as long as the calorie consumption is what it needs to be or close enough. So what you want to do is stay in ranges most days, protein, hit it consistently. It's a foundational. You want to plan the weekends if you have specifics going on. Um, Recover if you do have a slip meal and or a day that was just not what you thought it was going to be. If you're off a little bit, you want to recover. You want to get right back into the pattern. So progress is pattern improvement. So then I'm going to go into some identity shifts, some thought processes from being, good during the week to being consistent regardless of the day. It doesn't matter what scenario, what situation you're in, you're going to make the best decision for you to continue to progress. So identity drives behavior. So who do you need to become to make these decisions? What does that look like for you? That's a new you. So system's always going to beat motivation. Motivation's going to weigh. It's going to come and go. So motivations fade, systems remain, structure remains. If you have those specific things that I went through. So structure your weekends, remove decision fatigue, repeat what works, and all these components and structures that I talked about will help you consistently move the needle forward. So what I would challenge all of you is commit to at least a 14-day cycle, preferably a 28 day. So if you can win the weekends and stay within the parameters and hit that 5, 7, 10, 14, 28, things will change for you. You will notice it from your energy levels, your response to hunger, your response to consumption of food, because your body will adjust based upon you being consistent. So no restarting on a Monday. This is just what you do. It's continuous. This is where the results will show, and you can compound that. Once you get, 28 days down, you're going to be chugging along, and that scale is going to adjust and move for you. Guarantee you. So, the final message, again, things do not have to be perfect. We need consistency. We need close enough. Stay close enough to your calorie range, especially on the weekends. Let's stack the 14 to 28 days. And then, uh-oh, we had a typo. We got Christmas back in there again. But it should break the yo-yo cycle because if you feel that's something that you struggle with, we need to have some conversations around that and see how we can help maybe break that cycle or break the patterns that you may be holding on to. So with that said, I'm going to open it up. Um, so I'm going to head and stop the share and open it up and see what questions, or if you guys have any specific questions or have been maybe impacted by some of these concepts. So does anybody have any specific scenarios they want to talk through and or questions? No, I'll put you to sleep. All good. Um, this is just real, these are just real life scenarios that from a coaching standpoint over the years that we've seen people struggle with. And when we get clients to win the weekends close enough, and start stacking the days and and reframe some of the thought process and responses when things are not perfect or when they're outside of their regular routines or schedule and they're still able to navigate it on a win-win. That's when the magic is made, and that's where the results are compounded. So, nutrition again is the foundational component. Obviously, there's a lot of other moving parts, but as we get this better, and then we start adding those moving parts or getting better at those other moving parts, then we can really accelerate the process. So it is a thing that you do have to have consistency, just like resistance training. If you're in resistance training now, it's you're building a foundation for the future. I like to frame it that way because everything you're doing this week, next week's going to impact you next year. And if you're consistent and you consistently show up good enough, it's going to compound because with consistency, you're going to build confidence and you're going to change how you show up, and it becomes easier and easier. So, with that said, if you guys don't have any other questions, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and stop the recording and I'll start wrapping it up. Awesome. Well, I'm going to go ahead and uh, kick the recording off and then